one of my sons left university, we went to the leaving ceremony in the chapel, and the dean said what he wanted most of all was that these young people left as sound human beings. And I thought this was absolutely wonderful, because there's an expression to be sound in mind and body, and we have this in many different languages. And to be sound means to be healthy, true, and literally sound, and to one's ideas to be true. And so working with the voice is the best way we have. We're wind instruments. We have a tube with holes in us, and we can make sound consciously. And the world that we inhabit is vibratory. Everything is vibratory. The regularities and the periodicities of vibrations. And the way that we have of participating in that is by using our voices. And it's a very joyous experience. I remember once going to a performance that a friend of mine was singing in, a choral performance, and at the end of it the audience was tired and cold, and the singers came down from the stage just laughing, and they were in a kind of ecstasy. And so the gift of sharing the voices with others is real ecstasy, joy, and it's impossible to be sad or to be anxious. Or so the most important thing for human beings is to be present. And all the heart of all spiritual traditions is how are we present? How all meditation techniques are teaching us how to be present. Because if we're not present, every time we see or smell or taste or have any sensory input, it reminds us of what we haven't done, fills us with regrets, and then obligations that we have to do in the future, dreads of what we might have to do or what might happen to us in the future. So we are filled with fear of the possibility of something that may never happen. And so all spiritual traditions teach us how to be present. And the key about using the voice in this way, in the way that I teach, is that you make a sound and you listen to the sound that you're making while you're making it, so that you can only be in the present, because there isn't any part of the mind wandering around trying to make trouble. In addition to that, there's a kind of induction of order. So all spiritual traditions talk about order as the development of consciousness. Diamond mind, for example, is the key. The diamond is matter in its most extremely ordered state. And so one of the things that I'm teaching is this form of chanting called overtone chanting, or harmonic chant, or harmonic singing. And this is a way of making a sound, but amplifying, making louder the inner sounds that you don't normally hear, but which tell us what the sound is coming from, what is making the sound, making them louder so you hear them as actual notes. And this means that we can be sound in mind and body, because all Western music in the 17th century was tuned out of tune through the popularity of pianos and the means that we had of tuning. So our whole tuning system has to make our music out of tune, and we've exported this to all different cultures. So the one way that we have of making and becoming sound is through the harmonic. So chanting on a single note and amplifying these other sounds, which are the most ordered part of the sound there is. They're the sine waves of the sound become louder. And so we use sound not just to be present and therefore ecstatic in the joyous moment of the present where all is known, but also ordered through the structure of the sound itself that we're making. And then there's a whole other aspect of sound, which is the stimulation of what we call happy chemicals. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. So all of these are the kind of chemicals which people take, substances, they take medication in order to stimulate, in order to overcome anxiety. And when we make sound, all of these are stimulated in the brain. And then more recently, people have discovered this substance called nitric oxide, which makes the veins larger and allows the blood flow to be increased all over, and reduces blood pressure, of course. And so physically, this stimulation of the nitric oxide through the chanting, this is the key way that we do and have of doing that, brings us into a state of health. And then there's the vagus nerve. So it's been discovered more recently that this vagus nerve, which is this wandering nerve throughout the body, the stimulation of the vagus nerve overcomes anxiety, creates health physically and emotionally, psychologically. And the key way of stimulating the vagus nerve is by chanting. So, and then the other thing about sound, one of the many things about sound, is that sound creates form. So boundaries are created through sound. This is, we know about these vibratory patterns that come in liquids and substances when you make sound. So all forms have their own sound. And we can use sound to dissolve the boundaries between forms, which means that we can dissolve the boundaries between us. And it's the best way of creating community. And so we not only create community, but we create health, because when we activate our own sonorous geometry by this particular form of overtone chanting, it means that we become internally coherent, mutually coherent with others. And what's even more important is coherent with the geometry of nature, because to be healthy, we have to be in tune with our environment. And so these are some of the ways that we can use sound to bring about health, to activate all the organs, to be in a state of bliss, to be mutually coherent with other people, to be resonant in a resonant universe, and be absolutely present where all is known and all is understood and all healing happens.